If you really want to do something and if you share it with your guts, people's going to believe in it. It's about passion. It's about being convinced, having the energy and willing to do something.
Welcome back, everybody. Rich Brubaker, founder of Collector Responsibility, here today with another episode of the Mission Driven Podcast. Through this podcast, I'm speaking with entrepreneurs, academics, accelerators, innovators, investors about the work they're doing to basically attack the challenges that we see: environmental, social, economic, community-based. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what the platform is, just trying to make a little bit of progress to make the world a little bit better. In this episode, I'm extremely excited to be joined by Simon Bernard, who is a graduate of the French Merchant Navy. In 2017, after about 10 years of being in the industry, he founded Plastic Odyssey, an NGO that aims to reduce ocean pollution by promoting plastic recycling solutions adapted to developing countries. Right now he's in Singapore, but he's been taking his ship around the world, and it's an incredible journey. It's one that I'm really interested in because I'm just here still trying to think, like, how does a late 20s, early 30s group even fund to buy a ship, much less come up with the idea of sailing around the world and really driving awareness, building platforms, and delivering on a huge challenge that we've been talking about for many years and are finally starting to act on. So with that, Simon, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. It's great to have you here with us.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
All right, so as a starting point, personal introduction and the mission that you're on.
Yeah, as you said, I'm a former merchant navy officer. I started to work on big commercial vessel, and so obviously I was in love with the ocean from a very young age. I grew up the coast of Brittany, and yeah, I think that's something that is deeply rooted in me, this love for the ocean. So when I started to sail, and then discovering in some countries the amount of plastic going into the ocean, I thought we definitely need to do something and try to find solutions to prevent this amount of plastic going at sea. So the mission is really to find solutions and implement them to avoid plastic entering the ocean. We want to turn off the tap of plastic pollution by doing two things. The first one is what we've called clean up the past, but actually it's recycling the plastic that is on land before it goes to the sea. So finding viable economic model to help local entrepreneurs to create jobs while recycling the plastic. That's the first action. And the second one is trying to build a future without plastic, or at least reducing the amount of plastic we use. And this is by acting on people's behavior, education, showing also concrete solutions to help them change behavior and reduce the use of plastic. So that's like the two actions we are carrying at the same time.
When did this become your mission? What made you literally jump ship to start this? And was there like a catalytic moment that you remember, or like there was a spark that said, it's time for me to do this?
It's not like one, I wouldn't say there is one moment that really changed my life. I've always been interested in innovation. I wanted to become an inventor when I was young. So I've always been inventing stuff, trying to solve problems, challenges, and always been interested in solutions. And I took part in 2016 in an expedition going to Africa. I had the chance to go to Senegal, to Dakar, and see the plastic going at sea. That's when I decided to change life, let's say, and to, instead of sailing in big commercial vessel, to organize and launch an expedition.
But what was your thought process about what you could do? Because you could have joined a nonprofit, you could have gone and worked in many areas. Why start your own organization? Why create the Plastic Odyssey?
I think it's because I really had an idea of what I wanted to do and nobody was doing it. I really wanted to work on concrete solutions, positivity, and there was actually very interesting project like precious plastic, ocean cleanup, but not about this entrepreneurship vision of building, creating jobs in countries who need it and trying to prevent pollution a bit upstream. It was like whether you clean up the ocean, but it's going to be endless. And I discovered that the problem wasn't really at the surface of the ocean. So that we needed to act on land. And so the only organization working on land I knew was Precious Plastic, but it was too small. It was really like for education or raising awareness. And I wanted something more, a bit bigger, able to create jobs, able to become viable in terms of economic model. And so they didn't exist. That's why I wanted to do something. And also because when you want to do something big, like if you have a big ambition, you need to have your own organization because you will carry it. You will carry the message, and you will need to raise money. And the only way to be able to raise money is to represent your own organization.
So when you got started, what was the big vision or what was the big goal that you had from day one? And did it involve buying a boat? Or was it like, I want to work with entrepreneurs, I want to work with innovators, and then you kind of found yourself where you are now over time?
I think because I am a sailor, that was like how I wanted to act. I think if you are a designer, you start by, a graphist, you start by creating your logo. And when you're a sailor, you start by buying a boat. And I think, I didn't realize what it meant and how powerful it could be afterwards. But yeah, definitely started with let's find an existing boat and just put recycling machines on board, and we just go to places where there is a problem and bring concrete machines and solutions to showcase.
Okay, so you're using this as a platform to really kind of showcase or bring solutions. How have you built out this boat? Like, what is the laboratory? What are the machines you're bringing in? How often do you find that these local communities already have something even similar to what you're bringing? What they're missing is a business model, or they're missing a consistent stream. Like, how much is what you're bringing in? How do you use this boat to really bring that all together?
One very important part of the expedition is to document what exists. So it's to meet recyclers, local entrepreneurs, see how they are recycling plastic, what technology they use, how they make money, and how it works. And then it's to take the best solution we have seen and implement all these solutions on board to be like a showcase of the best solutions. So that's how it was thought. So at the beginning, as we hadn't seen any or had not a lot of initiatives. So we started with simple machines that we had discovered, and little by little we improved the techniques. The lab is kind of evolving by the time passing and just being better and better. But it's very basic machines to recycle plastic. There is no high tech behind. That's the challenge for developing countries and places where there is a problem of waste management is that you need simple machines, easy to maintain, easy to replicate, to build. So that's the main challenge.
And when these machines, is the output more, say, a primary material that would then be sold to another manufacturer, or are you actually trying to use the machines to create new products that could then be sold on site?
If you're just making material to sell to plastic manufacturer, let's say, most of the places where there is a problem of plastic, it's because it's not worth transforming it and selling it to the plastic market. And so the only way we could think about a way to make it possible was to do waste to product. So not creating plastic material, but creating a product that could compete with wood or concrete, other materials rather than plastic, because you're always competing otherwise with the virgin plastic price. So you want to create finite product that can have better characteristic than the existing one. For example, to replace wood for outdoors furnitures. So that's how we're trying to do. It's not easy because you really need to find what products for what market in each country. That's, I think, for now, the only way to succeed.
How many countries have you been to so far, and what are some of the lessons that you've been learning along the way, either about the root causes of the plastic waste in each area, or the potential market for the products that you're trying to develop?
So we've been to 25 countries so far. You have a lot of existing business model and existing companies that are making money and are able to survive. Obviously, they're not making a lot of money, but they manage to find markets. But I think that we still need to innovate, step back a little bit and think about how we can make better products. Usually, when you are meeting recyclers, they don't necessarily have uh, designers with them or other entrepreneurs. So they're creating quite simple product and they struggle to find the market. So I think we can push a little bit further, be in a position where we can innovate a bit more and try to make the best products so that we can find the offtake. Once you found this, the rest is pretty simple.
Have you found in those 25 countries, have you found any that actually have either solved for those problems or are actually getting really close? Are there good examples that you've been finding along the way that you can share?
Yeah, I think the most interesting initiatives were in South America, especially in Colombia. That's where we saw the best recyclers, and they were building houses made out of plastic. So it was really impressive to see that they have a level of expertise that is really good.
I mean, when it comes to learning, one of my big questions is, you guys are a bunch of young founders. I mean, you're in late 20s, early 30s. What do you think the advantages or disadvantages of being that young were? I mean, you successfully funded, and we'll talk about this in a bit, to be able to source an actual boat and convert it into what you need. So you accomplished quite a bit just in that action. But as young founders, what do you feel to be the advantages and disadvantages of being young at the time?
Yeah, good question. So I think the advantage is definitely you because you don't know how hard it can be to do things. You're not afraid to go and to try. So I think that would be the advantage. Nobody is really afraid of having a big ambition and trying to solve impossible problems. Whereas when you're older, you have more experience, so you know the complexity of stuff, and you tend to think, okay, this is not possible. Whereas when you're young, you might have this naive approach where you're like, okay, why not trying to do that? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least you maybe exploring different paths. For most people, when you get older, you tend to lose this the creativity and the craziness you can have when you are younger. So I think that's the advantage.
I think a lot about when I was in my late 20s and I started my first charity. And I mean, it was like we said earlier, I wasn't really thinking, I was kind of naive about it. I just got started and found my way. Now that I'm a little bit older, and I am a little bit older, I have the same crazy ideas, but I also have a 12-year-old, right? So you think about the risk of accomplishing something big or taking a big risk very differently, right? And also the way that you do it is also, I'd say a little bit like in your late 20s, early 30s, like I can do it and I'll bring the team together of other young people. Now I more look at, I don't want to do it all myself. I want to find young people to do it for me. So it's a little bit different, but you still have crazy ideas.
Yeah, that's for sure. But then, yeah, I think the disadvantage would be it's very hard to find people that trust you. You haven't got any experience, so raising money is very hard, and you have to find the crazy people that will, you know, believe in you, trust you, and give you the chance.
On that thread, like you raised significant sums of money to be able to acquire this ship. How did you approach that? Because you mentioned like some people don't trust you, it's hard to raise money, but how many doors did you have to knock on to get the yes, to get the money? And then what did you learn along the way? Like, how did you improve your presentation or the way that you talk about your dream or the way that you present your team?
Yeah, it's funny because at the beginning we didn't have a clue about how much it's gonna cost. And I remember at the very beginning we took part in some competition, like a very small entrepreneurs competition. And like I remember we were competing for 1,000 euros, I think. So like it was really the beginning just to buy t-shirts and business card or I don't know. And the people were like, okay, how much is going to cost such an expedition? And I remember saying 2 million euros, which today it's about 15 millions. So we were quite far from, But what I've learned, I think, is that there is no recipe, there is no magic recipe, and every single partner, every single money we found, that's a different story, that's a different approach, a different reasons. So it's yeah, you have to, I think, try and try and try again and keep what is difficult, I think, is keeping this energy, keeping the passion and talking with your guts, not trying to talk with your mind like like a building rational presentation. I think it's about the success is about talking with your guts. If you really want to do something, And if you share it with your guts, people's gonna believe in it. And it's funny because one of the biggest sponsor we had, it's been now 5 years. We are working with them, and I saw the guy. He's a brilliant entrepreneur. When I saw him last year, something like that, he was telling me, "Well done for what you've done. I gave you 50 chance of succeed." At the beginning, he knew there was a risk, and he was saying like, yeah, 50-50, this guy is going to succeed. So it's funny because he didn't, he wasn't believing 100%.
So you sold him on your passion.
Yeah, I think it's about that. It's about passion. It's about being convinced and really having the energy and really willing to do something. And in terms of how many doors I had to knock on, I would say, I'm not sure, but I would say the percentage of success is about 1%.
So if I think a little bit different, like say ocean cleanup, like they're funding to pull all the model plastic out they can and create new products as their only business model. You are kind of labeling yourself as an exploration project, which to me has a duration, right? Could be 3 years, could be 5 years, could be whatever. Are you selling it as like, look, this is a 3 to 5 year project only, and then there's something else afterwards? Or how do you position an expedition differently than a company whose mission is to solve the plastic problem forever?
We had this duration of 3 years at the beginning. And we thought, okay, we will find money for 3 years of expedition, and that will enable us to explore and document the best solution, but also build this international network of entrepreneurs and stakeholders. And this will enable us to move to the next phase where we will implement those solutions with local entrepreneurs. So that's how we thought about it. At the beginning, to be honest, we had the idea of release open source business blueprints, open source machine blueprints. We will give the knowledge we have learned during this expedition to people so that they can copy and they can succeed. We quite rapidly discovered that it's not going to be enough to give knowledge. It's not going to help people enough. And so if we want to scale the impact and have a concrete impact, we had to go further. And so that's why we moved from just giving open source blueprints toward building a franchise model. And so what we do now in Senegal, we have a team completely independent from the boat, and we have a team of 15 people, Plastic Odyssey employees in Dakar, and they are building a network of 10 factories that each factory will be operated by independent entrepreneurs, but we will still keep a link with them like a franchise. And so the maintenance, for example, can be done by us, finding contracts to sell the products also, and we will do that. We will do the design, R&D, having the showroom. That's how we're trying to move after the expedition.
It's a vastly different model.
Yeah, it's very complicated. Absolutely different from the expedition and exploration part. But
so the entrepreneurs that you meet, are there any commonalities? Like, are they all young? Are they all environmentally focused? Are they all got some similar characteristics that you're finding right now?
it really depends. We find young people motivated by the environment, really wanting to do something about it. But we also find a lot of people that are just in the business and found this field, let's say, of recycling, and they see it as a business. So they know it can help preserve the environment, but they're just making money with plastic.
Instead of on the solution side, like on the tap side, the turning the tap off side of the work that you're doing, what's the progress you've been making there? And is that easier? Is it more complicated than the solution side, the innovation side of your business? Because I feel like that's probably more important for the long term than anything else right now. It's just
what we usually say is that there is a triangle of there is the consumer, there is government or regulation, and there is plastic producers. And so that's the triangle, and you can say you can see it as an inaction triangle because each party is going to rely on the others. If you are a consumer, you're going to say it's not my fault, it's the producer or it's the government. If you are a producer, you will say exactly like that. I need the customers are buying my product. So there's this very powerful inaction triangle today, and it's very hard to tackle the three at the same time, the three key stakeholders. We decided to work on the consumer part because that's where we stand like at the grassroots level. And so most of our work is about educating children. I think that's quite powerful because one child can educate seven adults afterwards. So that's how we saw it. Like, okay, let's focus on children because then they might be able to change their self, but also to educate their parents. And also trying to look for solutions, alternative solutions to plastic to showcase in an exhibition that we set up every time. But this is complex because usually we find alternatives to plastic, but they are more expensive than plastic. So it's only some solution we have seen have a chance to scale, and it's most of the time it's not about changing the material itself. It's about changing the way we consume. So for example, if we talk about water bottles, plastic bottles, the best solution we have seen is not a solution that replaces the plastic bottles by another material, biodegradable material, let's say. It's a solution that can avoid plastic bottle by providing bulk water, drinkable water in bulk. And so that's powerful. We have this solution on board. It's a unit that is able to filter water. Thanks to that, aboard the vessel, we avoided 20,000 plastic bottles in only 2 years. So you can really see the impact is, and this is just for drinkable water. I think these kind of solutions can really scale. But then you have to think where you have to understand why people are still buying plastic bottles when they have a solution that is 2 times cheaper. And so that's a challenge of social sciences. And this is complex because the brain is not a computer.
The next 5 years, you're going to transition from explorers to innovators and entrepreneurs in a different way. What are you doing today to kind of create the foundation for the next 5 years? And what is your ultimate mission? What's the goals? How do you define success for the next 5 years?
We will transform Plastic Odyssey in really two separate organizations. So first one will be a for-profit, trying to find economic model to scale the impact by replicating this franchise model where we can create jobs while turning this plastic into products. So that's something we have already started to do. We have a team in Senegal. We have 3 other factories in West Africa. We have two factories in Philippines that are being built. That's going to be one side. But we also want to keep a non-profit part because we realize that there are places where it's not going to be viable economically to recycle plastic. And so you need to have a different approach, especially where nobody goes. So we identified 2 places where I think it's important you can have a big impact and nobody is able to go. First is uninhabited places, hard to reach places. Like we managed to clean up Henderson Island, which was the most polluted island on Earth. And what was interesting is that nobody managed to take the waste off the island because of the coral reef. It was almost impossible to pass through the coral reef. So you had to think about other creative solutions to take the waste off the coast. And we came up with crazy ideas using a parasail, like a parachute, to lift the bags over the barrier. And that works really well. We removed the 10 tons of waste that was on this remote island. So that would be one part of the non-profit. And the other part will be to go in places where you need emergency actions. There's going to be more and more climate refugees. So a lot of people we have seen in Panama, we have seen islands that will disappear. So you will have places with urgent needs of waste management, plastic waste management, because in camps or places like that, I think we can convert the vessel, the boat, we can convert it to make fully functional recycling, modular recycling vessel. So not only for showcasing stuff, but to concretely recycle plastic in places where there is an emergency. That's a non-profit mission we will continue.
All right, as a last few, I mean, you guys have accomplished quite a bit in your 7-8 years now since 2016, 2017 when you got started. You've raised a lot of money, you've created a lot of awareness, you've gone to 25 places, all off the back of passion in many ways. Now, I'm sure that I've still got a few people watching this after an hour wondering, okay, I've got something that I'm really passionate about, I want to do it. What are a couple pieces of advice that you'd give them as they get started along this path?
So I think the first step is, are you really passionate about, are you really determined, and are you able to persevere enough to succeed? That's I think almost the only way to succeed is to have this perseverance. You need a bit of chance, obviously, but you need first to be very determined. And then I would say the second advice I have is keep this young mind and this young, like almost child mindset, to be able to go further without thinking about all the problems, without thinking of what can happen and what are the challenges I will face, because obviously there's always challenges, and never happens how you plan it at the beginning. So you also have to try to yeah, stop thinking about that and just think about the passion, and go further. But that's hard sometimes.